What's the big idea?
All right. We are here with episode number
46.
46.
Look at that. I
Yeah,
remember.
look at you. 46. So
I'm eating carbs now. My brain works.
yeah, so you were playing more beach and you found that going caveman. You were going caveman or carnivore?
Carnivore.
But you were eating berries and
A little bit. I was
berries
eating like
and
a little bit
veggies,
of berries.
but very little.
Wasn't, yeah.
So more like caveman,
Yeah.
right?
I think I was like eating those just like out of like intense like craving, but I wasn't actually like planning on a decent amount of carbs before a tournament.
Yep.
So I did that this last tournament and noticeably better, like not just physically, but like mentally as well.
With the carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the carb culture thing, like to me, it's like anything that's too extreme is not a good idea. Like we go in these extremes and then we wonder why we have cravings for things.
Yeah.
Carbs are energy, So
Yeah.
if you I mean, there's different types of carbs, obviously, but
Yeah.
I just find that whenever a diet option emerges, like, and again, I'm older than you, so I've seen a million of these things, and it sends people all in on one direction. I'm like, that's not. I mean, the old adage, the everything in moderation, becomes pretty intelligent or wise.
And I think it's only now more so opening up to different ideas of carb, or the fact that carbs are so attacked is because we have so many terrible carbs for us.
Yeah.
Right. Or they're so pervasive in so many foods. And that's where a lot of the issues like come from. Because I learned a lot from this heavily carb. I learned a ton from it. And that I can use going forward. But for sure, if you're going to play, especially a 2-day tournament where you're playing like, I don't know, like 5 hours each day, like how are you going to do that without?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, even I did a little thing where I was like, we played a tournament recently together, a fours tournament, but it was like it was my first tournament in a long time. Yeah. And I was like, okay, how am I going to be able to do this? Cause it was hot. And I did start to play with the idea of like going fasted as long as possible in the day. Cause I've found with workouts, it feels great. But then I was like, no, like by 10 o'clock, I was like, no, I still need energy. And I'm going to get worn down and, like water is just going to go right through you. Yeah. And so, I ended up munching all day. And I think that made the difference. So
I think you can play like your first match in like a tournament like that fasted. And then all of a sudden
or maybe even indoor. Like we should be careful. Like kids have to be careful because they're growing. But
exactly.
These are for fully developed adults. Yeah, not kids.
For kids.
Yeah. Because they're still growing and developing. But you've done indoor fasted.
Yeah. And usually the first game of the day can be pretty crazy. Like you're just so fast and nimble and like light and like and mentally sharp. Like that's where we've experimented with this, like in terms of like when I was in school, like learning, and then actually when I was at work as well. The benefit of that going to work fasted is that like my brain is just like super kind of quick. It's kind of it's different.
The biggest thing I find is that it prevents or delays the crash, right? Because when you do eat and all that blood rushes to your stomach for digestion, you kind of get drowsy, and I think that's what most people are trying to avoid all day. And then you're mentally sharper. I think the blood's just flowing through your whole body really well because it's not being sent, right? That's And but one thing I found, like for people into intermittent fasting, is that when I don't do it like religiously, and I don't even do it intentionally. Some days I'm just like, I'm not hungry, so I may as well stick with a black coffee and just some vitamin, my athletic greens or whatever in the morning. But I find that the fasting, just like when I go do a workout, I'm very strong fasted, which I never would have. It's also like getting your brain around it too. Like, cause I think in our society, we're always like, oh, I haven't eaten and it's like 1 o'clock and I'm getting lightheaded. And it's all, you learn too, that the later you eat at night, the more hungry you're going to wake up in the morning because your stomach's expanded from eating late at night. So it really is like the more you eat, the more you need. Which explains sort of the whole world, right? This is how people in other countries eat a lot less than North Americans do, and they are not starving obviously, of course, they're starving in the world, but you know what I mean? Like we as a culture, the more we put in our tummies, the bigger our stomachs expand, the more we need. Now it feels emptier, right? Then that's sort of an interesting thing.
Like nutrient deficiency in Western countries is pretty much gone. That doesn't even happen. Like even if people are like living off of like McDonald's
Yeah.
or whatever. There's way more nutrient in that than there are in countries where people like have nothing or terrible water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then what I think what we're learning is just, again, it goes back to everything in moderation. Like it's normal to actually experience hunger, to actually in some form over a 24-hour period to be in a fasting state, right? It's not normal to eat for 18 hours a day or something.
Yeah. And that's the thing that like that's the buy-in for me. Like, well, we're not big on buying into trends, but the only thing about intermittent fasting that's interesting, again, this is for adults who are fully developed and grown and everything, not for young people, but for the interesting thing to me is like, in our natural state for millions of years, we didn't have refrigeration. We didn't have, we didn't have food at the ready, drive-throughs, late night stuff. So like waking up in the morning, you would have to go find food. And so that gap, right, that from the night before, you didn't have stockpiles like we have today. So it just feels natural to me. It feels like we tap into something there that's more natural.
And if your food stores are low, and then you have that stress on you to go and get some, it makes sense that you would be sharp, right? And obviously it just coincides with the fact that, there's no food in your stomach. So your blood is able to go to all your muscles in your brain just as well. It's not inhibited by having to, because that for sure, when you eat something, and it depends on what the food is, a whole bunch of blood gets locked into your stomach because it has to. Yeah. So you wake up, you don't have food, you're super sharp, and then you can go, you have to chase down something or use your brain to like, look for the right things. It does kind of make sense.
Sometimes at night what I'll do is like, because we have microwavable pizza and everything now, right? So I'll get my wife to like tie the pizza to a string, and I'll try to catch it. Just to replicate that ancient
at night. Right.
Usually in the nude. Anyway. Speaking of topics,
what's a big pool of KY jelly?
Hey, whoa. Too far. What is the topic today? We're talking about, Eric, you remember what it is?
Yeah, we're talking about tryouts.
We're talking about tryouts because they're happening in a lot of places in the U.S. right now. It's like the national sort of tryout week. And so we thought it would be good to put together. We did an episode on tryouts before.
For all like divisions? Like we're talking college?
I don't know. It's youth like club tryouts are happening everywhere, and then a lot of school tryouts too, but like mostly like AAU stuff,
right?
So a lot of club teams tryouts everywhere, and so we thought we did a tryout show before, so we thought that this one would be good to do on like how to stand out at tryouts, because everybody has like bad ideas and good ideas about how to do this. So we wanted to put together a nice little list of how, from a coaching perspective, like as a coach, what would we see, and as a player, what would something that they could do, and parents maybe to help their kids get ready for tryouts and stand out in a good way.
And point out the goofy things that we've heard.
Yeah, point out some things that people talk about and address maybe some misconceptions about trying. So it'll be a quick discussion of like a few points from each of us about what we think players should do to stand out at tryouts. So hopefully you get something from it. And as usual, if you're watching and you want to help us out, just maybe hit that subscribe button, because that's all we that's all we ask, and it helps us out a lot. It also helps us get in some bigger guests that we want to get down the road. So please hit that subscribe button, and that'll help us out. But
you're getting better at delivering the plug. It's good.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Pretty good at plugs.
What?
No.
That's why.
What is that about? I don't know what that's about. Anyway, Eric, do you want to start us off?
So I had an idea. You should, the coach that you're going to be trying out for, you should go and look at game tape of them from the season before to see what they really like in their players, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and then just try to do that.
so find video online of the club coach.
Of the coach, and like see when they get really excited, about if you're like a really loud team, if they like really loud players, then when you go to tryouts, you could just like replicate. Have like 4 coffees, give your kid 4 coffees, and they'll get really fired up.
Okay, so your advice is to not be yourself. I hope Eric's joking. I think Eric's joking.
I'm joking.
Eric's trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
See, if somebody turned it off right now, they're gonna buying some pods, coffee pods. No.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
No. So but that's funny. So that assumes that coaches would have video footage of themselves and their teams.
On the side,
yeah. All right. Well, that was funny, Eric.
Okay. An actual one. Then like this is well, man, I don't know. I feel bad for starting with this one, but this is something like just be like kind, like showing up to practice, you know, your environment, a whole bunch of new people, but also show like, try to carry yourself with like, you don't have to be too nice to people, or what am I trying to say? Just show up like, well composed, be nice to other people, like show self-confidence.
Well composed? Did you say that? Well composed. Oh, I thought you were saying a well composed, like a yoga thing. Like mountain pose. Well composed.
Because you're well composed. What would that even be?
Like an embrace? Like,
I don't know.
Like a hug? Like this?
Or you just roll out like a mat and it says welcome.
Welcome. Yep. You're 0 for 2 in jokes today.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So having a body language that is kind, positive, but also not a pushover.
Yeah,
that's the balance.
Because you're there for a reason. I'm just trying to have flashbacks when I would go to these tryouts, and I would be nervous. But the thing is, you're there to play volleyball, and so are the other people who are there, and they're also going to be nervous, right? So you can get in there and just like, but again, you're not trying to like be too I don't know, too like overly nice or trying to like make friends with her. Just like maybe you can ask someone like, hey, you want to warm up, play pepper? Like that's how it can start. Like you're there, you're not like doing something else outside of volleyball. You're there for volleyball, you know, get your stuff on. And then if other kids are warming up, just don't be afraid to ask someone to like, hey, warm up together. Yeah. Right. It shows that you are also like, you're not too shy. Like, again, you're there for a reason. And there's if the person says, no, I have a warm-up partner, well, fine, then go ask another kid or something, right? Right. So you're already kind of like getting used to the fact that you're just establishing in your own mind, I'm here for a reason. I want to show like that I'm here for that. And I understand that there's a social aspect to volleyball. It's a very social sport. That's a part of the team play element. And that you are, you know, not too shy, you're assertive, but you're also not trying to like,
yeah, well, it sounds like you're saying like you want the player not to get caught up in the games of tryouts where like like if someone's snooty, just remember, don't take things personally, just go on, do your business. It's funny because I had a similar notion. Like I was making my list and I was thinking about like, you're there, like you kept saying you're there for volleyball, you're there for a purpose, don't forget that, because kids get wrapped up in the social side of things. Yes. And like I feel centered out because I'm alone. Well, who cares? Go up against the wall, hit the ball against the wall if there's no other partner. Like focus on the job, don't get caught up in the personalities in the gym. Does that sound about right?
Well, and exactly. Even if you end up just warming up against the wall, another kid who comes in who's also feeling nervous, who's maybe thinking along the same lines, they're going to come over to you, ask you to warm up, and now you're already getting things going. I think coaches, I would like to see that. Yes, for sure. Yes,
totally. You know what's funny too? When you're mentioning this, I'm just picturing it, and I've seen this so many times. What happens is that kid that walks in nervous and is like feeling like they're being excluded, they find a partner, and then the next kid walks in, and then they can't wait to pass that feeling of exclusion onto them because now they found a partner. Yeah. Or they'll roll their eyes or something at someone they met. It's a very interesting thing where like, you know, it's like I found my person, so I'm going to treat that person the way I felt 10 minutes ago. It's very weird. I mean, it's very common, right? That's what bullies do. Bullies like get bullied, feel it, and then they can't wait to pass it on, you know?
And then you'll have a few kids that'll be like, oh no, like join us, we'll warm up in 3.
Yes. And then there are kids that can't wait to exclude the next kid. It's funny. It's funny to see sometimes, but I think one thing, so you hit on like a lot of stuff there that was good.
Big social aspect of it.
I suppose, and you said like, and also you said to show up sort of calm, right? Like I sense like show up, don't be too nervous, don't be polite, but can you like, so my first point was like to prepare. So I think that one thing that gets rid of nerves that kids and parents don't realize is that the athlete should prepare. And to me, prepare means like in the days and weeks leading up to it, like working out and doing extra things that you can do, meditation, yoga, training, running, if you want to increase your cardio. It's super handy to have that extra thing that you think you're doing that other people aren't doing. So when you walk into a gym, you are calmer and you feel like you have an edge over people, which makes you, physically tougher, mentally tougher. And then you'll notice that you won't get stressed out a lot. And then the other two things are sleep and food. I think that they're overlooked.
That's funny you said that. Yeah.
We were talking about that at the start of the show too. And sleep and food, man, super. Like if for your mood, like your anxiety, stress goes up, all of us, right? If we're not well rested, it's automatic that you're going to be a little jittery the next day, a little hyper, a little down. And then eating, right? If you eat like crap, that's another. I think like the Starbucks and it's so trendy.
Yeah.
But if parents actually step back and look at what it's doing, you combine the aspects of sleep, because the phones are in the rooms now at night, and food. Man,
phones are in the room now. You're right.
Watch your kids' anxiety go down like crazy. If you like, even just you don't have to eliminate, like we said, everything in moderation, right? Like just reduce that stuff in terms of the junk. Just reduce it. You don't have to get rid of it. You don't want to teach your kids that food is bad. That's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
But you do that, and then just stay on top of the sleep a little bit.
Yeah.
And do some things before bed. That's people forget that. You can't tell somebody to improve their sleep, but maybe getting the fresh air before bed, or doing a little something that winds down nicely, dimming lights.
Yeah.
I find fresh air is great. Like if you go for a walk in the evening or something outside,
I like that.
and then you're gonna conk out.
The whole like now when I eat, I always try to do something, and it usually ends up walking just so like your body's kind of always, especially as an athlete, you just want to have that cellular signaling. It's like, okay, I'm not just going to eat this food and sit down. Like, like, and also I find when you're someone who's also, sorry, this is a tangent. When you're working out more, you're much more aware of your food intake, because it's uncomfortable to go exercise with a brick in your stomach, right?
Totally.
So there's that. So you're kind of getting used to that'll be a habit that you'll make. You eat and you go move around and then have a calm evening. Like I'm starting to actually like books, or like I'm starting to like that, like after dinner before bed. It's just because I don't want to do too much exercise, or actually stretching is probably the other thing I'll do, but like book and stuff. But then the good night's rest. Oh, there's so many other tangents I'm thinking of. But anyways,
that's okay. Go for it.
Yeah, and then the biggest thing when I was young was actually just don't eat too close to the to the tryout.
Right.
That's the thing I would always do wrong with practices. I would come home and I would forget to eat because I would want to go do something with a friend and be like, oh, I got to go to practice. I better eat now. And then I would eat like a thing of spaghetti, and then I would be like really uncomfortable.
Yes.
So 100%. Don't do that.
Like, what do you say? Like, I always say like you should be done eating 2 hours before you start the activity. Would you say?
I would say 2 hours, and then more again, like kids can probably tolerate food, especially carbs, better than adults. Yeah, but like don't eat a massive thing of pasta. If you are like,
couple hours done.
That's like your dinner before the next day, and then your meal before should just be like something like lighter.
Yeah, agreed.
And it really helps. And then the sleep is a huge factor. That's the one thing that got me through all my exams and like college. Like I wouldn't study because I didn't. But then the one thing I knew is that if I just rested well, I could just like
BS better.
I could BS way better. I would have way more confidence, and I would just be like,
you can write better. Yeah, you could write better off the top of your head. Read a question, relax, understand what they're asking, and then answer a lot of common sense stuff.
And a lot of the strategies they use in those exams is just try to time crunch you, right? So it's like, how much can you pump out, which is such a stupid thing.
It doesn't exist in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like do this brain surgery in 70 minutes. Go. Like you don't tell, and don't look up any help. Don't look up any help if you run any problems. Yeah, that's cheating. Well, I want my brain surgeon to cheat. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. Let them bust out the manual.
Yeah, please do cheat on this exam. No, so I think so preparedness is connected to a lot of different things. But if you prepare physically, mentally, and in terms of sleep, it leads to a lot fewer jitters. So when you do walk into the gym, that attitude will be there, the politeness will be there, and the confidence. Because you still have to. There's a lot of coaches, sadly, they can't wait. I mean, this is how our brains work. We like to put people in categories. So when you're walking in the gym, subconsciously, I'll guarantee you the coaches are putting you into a box of confident, not confident.
And whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah, that's a kid I can push around. That's a kid I can't push around. Sometimes you can be too confident and the coach gets intimidated by that. But hopefully, you can... write that team off if that's the type of coach you observe. But my second point, I did one. What's your second point? What do you got?
Well, you made me think of another one. Is like you were talking about like just be exercising in the coming days or weeks or whatever. And like when I was younger, I wasn't exactly exercising, but I was constantly getting touches on a ball. With most of the time it was just with myself, or I had a friend.
Sorry, what? This is volleyball talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
But I used to just like hang out outside and just like volley a ball,
right?
Or like forearm pass, or I'd like hit it up. We had like this really low sloped roof, so I would like bump, set, spike up the roof, and then like track it, let it come back.
Cool.
But I used to do that a ton. It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day before tournament, and I just went out back and like just did the same thing, because like just getting used. And I think it had an impact on my tryouts, because I had just better, like when you're younger, a lot of kids don't have that setting touch, right?
Yeah.
So coach sees that, they're like, oh, this kid can like set a ball, and like maybe they'll, whatever, you just stand out.
Yeah, yeah. And you get the reps and the comfort of tracking a ball, passing a ball.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it definitely, for volleyball's like that. Volleyball's really interesting, because
gives
like,
you that confidence, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was just playing with the ball just the other day. The other day. By myself.
Volleyball. Yeah, it does. It's just the touch and feel of the ball.
Just kidding.
Against your skin. What? No, against. Anyway, good thing nobody's listening.
Yeah.
But no, just so when you do get served, or when you have to pass or set in a game, you're just more familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's part of that preparation for sure. Yeah. Did you have, was that sort of what you were talking about? Like just in terms of, well, volleyball is like interesting, right? Because if you go a few days without passing a ball, it leaves you pretty fast, right? Other than, compared to other sports, like, you can do a jump shot in basketball and miss a couple days. Yes, you'll be a touch rusty, but not like volleyball. I find volleyball is a lot more technical.
It is. Especially the forearm pass. Like, it's just really good to just constantly dial in that proprioception of ball, hand-eye coordination, right? So other than that, like that, and then again, like as a kid, I wasn't like exercising. I was just playing other sports.
Right.
I was like skateboarding or
interesting.
playing soccer.
Other sports are interesting, because that's something that we don't talk about enough today. We force kids to specialize, and we know all the research says that early specialization isn't a good idea. It leads to burnout. I think that multiple sports is interesting, because what it does for kids, speaking of prep, is that it gets you, it gives you perspective, which is one of my points. Like I tell kids to show up to tryouts with perspective. And if you're doing other sports or other things in your life, you tend to perform better in the clutch. Yeah. Because this isn't your whole life, right? Parents and players are making volleyball their whole life.
That's a good point, man.
Yeah. Because so like we grew up with other sports.
Yeah.
So we weren't.
I didn't care, man.
Well, it's funny too, because this also, parents, you can recognize this too, and we talk about this like when it happens with friend groups. So like if our daughters had only school friends, life would suck.
Yeah.
Because then when something goes on there in that social group, your kids toast. But our kids had volleyball, and they had soccer, and they had taekwondo, and so they had these other social groups.
Because things will happen within them.
Things will happen, but they had less riding on each friendship group. So just like the sport, if you have less riding on it, and then there's so much less pressure, you end up becoming a better friend to people anyway.
And then you can pivot better, and the pivoting is always back on yourself. You get the opportunity to realize that you don't necessarily need, it's amazing. We are social creatures, and we need that, but you can also be secure just by yourself in a moment of drought of friendship or something, or like some weird stuff happens that all of a sudden these people that you're friends with, you're kind of questioning, you can, and then find a new group.
And you have other people in the other group who also teach you that you're not the problem here. Because you're still here. And so with sports, it's good, because if you are doing other sports and succeeding in other sports or enjoying other sports, you show up to volleyball tryouts and you're like, okay, this isn't my life. And then you're relaxed. And we know that relaxed athletes perform better than athletes that are uptight.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when you get like you have the friend that you play with, they have like some challenging thing brought up. Well, you just went through something tough in your practice. So like I can think of specifically with friends I had in volleyball, like we would be in class together or whatever, working on a project. And it's just like, we already like knew how to like delegate at like age 12 or something.
From sport.
Yeah. And if no one's like, hey, do you want to do this? I'm going to handle this. It wasn't like, no, I want to do that. It's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, okay, boom, go.
Yeah, I mean, volleyball's cool that way, right? Because the team aspect and everybody having a role, and it's kind of neat that way. I think volleyball players are good at delegating and group work because that's every play. Whereas other sports, you can take over.
The roles are very unique in a way, right?
Like,
kind of different in hockey. They're closer.
Yeah, and like it's also like a single person can take over in all the other team sports.
Yeah,
but volleyball is different. You can't. You can have the best hitter in the world, but if they can't get the pass or they can't get the set, they're not going to do much. So volleyball is very interdependent.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, so my second point was like players if they arrive early and ready. I think that's because the last thing you want to do on tryout day is like be flustered. I know some kids like they get worried about showing up too early. They look like nerds or something. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like show up early, get your stuff on. If you are rushing in at the last minute or like something pops up that you didn't expect, like, oh, my shoes aren't, the laces are undone or something's missing in my bag or it took me a while to find something. Then you're flustered, and then that's going to carry on to the court. It's going to carry on into the play too, and how rushed you are in drills, and you might not get settled. So it's always best to show up early and make sure that you're ready early. Like if you get your stuff, and coaches love that, by the way. Like coaches love to see who's there first and who's there last, and who gets their stuff on, who's talking the whole time, and then late to the first huddle or whatever. So, these are little things, but they're big things to coaches. So
may get the opportunity to like just talk to them for a brief icebreaker or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even if it's like, if you think about it, people always talking about wanting to stand out in tryouts, like we are too. And some of them give bad advice, but there's nothing wrong with like, if that coach sees you first or second or in the early kids, there's nothing wrong with that because it makes an impact, right?
Good time to actually have an icebreaker with the other kids who show up early, because usually that's when the group is smallest, right? So it's easier to go and talk to someone else instead of when you walk into a room full of kids, it's super intimidating. It's like you're less likely to talk to someone at that time, right?
Yes.
Smaller, you're much more likely. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I used to camp out at the gym before the tryout.
Yeah.
And then I would follow the coach.
You're the guy.
I would follow the coach home. You know what I mean?
Oh, like my strategy number one.
Yeah.
Like real game tape. Like
life tape.
Yeah,
no
life
tape.
Yeah.
Just life. Yeah, I would hold onto the bottom of their car and like Cape Fear. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah. You'll get it. It's funny if you see it.
And then you find out like the coach's vices, and then you like blackmail them.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
Or you find out that they live on a street with speed bumps, and you're like, crap. You got injured. Anywho, don't do that.
Don't do that.
So another point for me was perspective, and that's sort of don't overthink. And you can't just tell someone to not overthink, but I think the perspective thing comes from, like we talked about, having different things in your life. But if you can get into the mode of like, it sounds counterintuitive or counterproductive to say it, but like if you can actually think that this doesn't matter a little bit, like in the weeks leading up to it, the night before, eating prep, it matters. But when you're actually there, if you as a player can just relax and say, I'm just here to play volleyball, right? And not live and die with every mistake or everything. Because if you live and die with everything, then it's going to turn into more and more errors. So I think perspective is one thing that players can learn by doing things more. More reps, more sports.
Yes.
And the prep, all of these things we talked about so far before actually give you perspective in the moment. The players that tend to show up like super uptight to practice or to tryouts, they tend to be the ones that like haven't done enough because there's a little worry there. And you can mitigate worry in the days and weeks before. So when you do walk in, you'll have better perspective. And through prep, like you said, ball touches and that all eliminates overthinking, I find. Well, even you're finding this, right? Like as a player this year, like we just talked about this a few minutes before the show. Like the more you do it, the less you'll worry about comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah.
And that's because even that's a rep, right? It's a rep of like comparison rep. Okay, now I diminish that. So, and that's awful. Like when you walk into a tryout and compare yourself, right?
Dude, and that just happens. It's like, I guess the good thing is that the gym is just full of so many new players. It's like, it's almost pointless. There's so much comparison going on that can kind of cancel all of it out. But
you hope, yeah.
You hope. Now, to add to what you're saying, of just trying to like try to tell yourself nothing matters. And again, like you're saying, like the playing other sports, that helps lead up to it. But I was thinking like I just flashbacks to when I was in tryouts, like I would go, you're in like passing line or whatever, right? And then you just happen to go up against some kid who's like a good spin server. And then sure enough, like you go to pass it and then you shank it, right? And then it sucks. And then you get back to the passing line and it's like on your mind, but like it works in an advantage to some degree, as long as you can like stay in it and just try to like allow yourself, like, what is it? Pressure is a privilege or whatever. And I like, as a kid, I wasn't thinking that. I just remember the feeling of like having a shank and like still being nervous, still thinking about it, but also wanting to like, because of the pressure was there and I want to play volleyball, I really wanted to pass the ball. And like, maybe I like didn't have the best second pass, but then I would get like the third or the fourth or fifth or something. And then that would give me such a good feeling that it almost like, I remember what you were saying when you were playing at Trent when you were younger, right? And like your first year, you just like, it was terrifying in a way. But then all of a sudden you have these moments in the year that can like kind of break you through that, that veil of that kind of fogginess of self-doubt. And then as soon as you break through, then you're just like, you're getting on this roll, right? And you're kind of hungry for the ball. You want to pass the ball. You want to hit the ball. You want to show. You start to have this feeling of like, yeah, you don't know all these other athletes around you. And now it's like, hey, I can kind of stand out. Like I just made an awesome pass. Like this feels good. And then you go to hitting or something and then the same thing kind of happens, right? And then you start to get a feel of like, I'm feeling good about myself. Obviously, you don't have control of what the coach does, but there is that feeling. So I guess what I'm just trying to say is like, just don't be too afraid of that pressure. It can work to your advantage, especially if you're there because you want to be there. You like the sport. You've had fun doing it. You're in a privileged position, and then just stay in it, and then you'll have these moments that feel really good. And I think that's what the whole thing that made the sport addictive to me was things like that, because the tryouts back in that club back in the day, it was great. Like I got to try out with like older guys and stuff, right? And like, mind you, it's a smaller club, so like I kind of knew my spot was secure just because we didn't even have a 14-man roster. But at the same time, there's nothing better for me as a younger player getting to try with older players and being able to be in the game with them, right? So for me, like I have to like be very thankful to just whoever helped me have that opportunity, right? No, and it's like I think getting into the flow, like you were talking about it, and embracing the pressure is how you probably get into like not overthinking, right? Because if you are sitting there thinking about every pass, every serve, don't serve to me, whatever, then it's like it's over. So the idea is to embrace these. I think one thing, like, it's so funny that like adults have this perspective and kids don't. Like, these days will be over soon. Right? Yeah.
Like this time that you're in these tries, and you will look back on them probably with fondness. Even the high pressure. That's why
I remember them so well.
Yeah, even the high pressure moments. Like even me, like enjoying that, being terrified as a 17-year-old rookie, getting like served, and you're like, don't serve me. Now I look back on that with a fondness, as part of the growth in the game. And so I think if you can sort of, as a young player, understand that this moment is so short, and that you shouldn't. You gotta have fun here. You're just you're playing a sport, right? You're playing a sport, and it's fun. That will probably help you not lose perspective on things, and not. I mean, the problem is people lamenting mistakes, going over them again in their head, and then it affects them the next time they come around to whatever skills developing. So you just have to get into the. I mean, I want to say flow state, but that's the terminology that a lot of people use. But the idea that. I think one powerful thing is to remember that one play is not connected to the next in volleyball. Yeah. And two, that it doesn't matter. Like, like everybody at volleyball, we talked about this before, is a sport of mistakes. And really, if a player can shift their mindset of thinking, you know what, making a mistake in a tryout is actually a good thing, because now I have an opportunity to show my coach how I come back.
That's a really good point.
After a mistake, right? So understanding that this mistake is an opportunity for me to now show how I bounce back will probably help you stop thinking about the mistake and wanting the next serve, wanting the next set. Little shift there, right?
Yeah, that this is equally just as important as as your ability to successfully deliver on that skill. Like it's almost your ability to just stay, like say you have a shank, but then the next one is like not a bad pass, like a 2-ball or something, right? Like your ability to stay hungry for the ball and then you're showing some mental stability, right? If you just start to like implode or whatever, or you start to like blame other kids or like looking for a way out. Yeah. I think
that goes back to the attitude point too, right? Like blaming other kids, attitude towards other players. Carry yourself with like self-respect, but also as a positive team person.
Yeah. The coach should know, like if you're that kid who gets put up against like a tough serve or whatever, the coach should be aware. It's like, this kid should be like
probably not.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So that's just it. You're staying in it. All these things that you're saying, like it doesn't really matter that much. It's short term. It's just.
And I think like my next point that sort of connects to this is like focus, because I mean, all of that tension and all of that stress that young players feel in tryouts, like if you picture yourself in a tryout, it's always because you're worried about what other people are thinking about you.
Yeah.
And you're worried about what they're doing versus what you're not doing, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the best things a young player can learn is to focus on the only thing that you can control. It's not what the coach sees. Like a lot of players get upset when they do something great and they look over and the coach didn't see them. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right? Who cares? Because that means
the other players saw it though.
Yeah, and also means but you don't want to be externally validated, right? You don't care if the other players see it. What you want to do is ride that wave and just be yourself. That's the goal, right? Is be yourself in these moments. So like, you gotta shake the comparison thing. Like, I know it's tough in this day and age with social media, but if you're externally validated, then you're going to perform badly. Because what that means is like, some other player does something great, then you're going to diminish. The coach sees you mess up, you're going to diminish, versus the kid that understands that, no, this is about me and my next play, and this is about me and this performance just to me. That's how you want to play, because like, again, our whole lives, we tell kids like, our school system sets kids up for external validation. It teaches them from age 4 to 17 or 18. Worry about what other people think. This teacher is like literally we're telling kids to be we're telling and perform to that person's standard, even if that person's an idiot. Sorry, but if the person's an idiot, we're still worried about what they think of us. Like, talk about a horrible message for kids. So there's this fine line of like teaching them to fit in with society and managerial and managers telling us what to do, and then there's another side that says but we're teaching them to rely on the opinions of others. Like, we're not internal. This is why kids don't do well in school, because they're not being not internally motivated. We're trying to motivate them with external things, and then they're not interested in the subject, right? So in sports, if a kid can be internally motivated, then what happens is that they will be able to better control themselves, because it's up to them. Like, I missed that hit, I want to do better next time, rather than the thought process of like, I missed that hit, everybody noticed, the coach hates me, or the coach, I'm not impressing this coach. And then that's how you get more pressure, right? Yeah. Versus the kid who's like, oh, I missed a hit, I'm going to crank the next one. I'm just going to, and not for anybody else, but just for you. That's a wonderful place to be as an athlete, right?
Yeah. I think I'm much more susceptible to that to the error of external validation now as an adult, having gone through all these systems, right?
Yes.
And now the age of the phone and technology, because for sure, absolutely, at the younger age, I definitely remember that feeling of just internally like being just happy like with what I did, and then that absolutely it's unshakable, because you're just thinking about your achievement. You totally are unaware of whoever else was watching, whether the coach saw it or not. Yeah, because it's going to lead into your next pass, and the coach will eventually see it or whatever. It doesn't matter. But
and if you want proof of how powerful this is, just look at how a little kid plays.
Yeah, that's
versus a kid when they become an
kids
adolescent.
Kids are more innate like this, because
kids are wild and carefree.
Yeah,
and then we can all remember the time when
they
we
go
saw
for what they want.
You see that little boy or little girl change around teenage years, where they get into comparisons and they get more self-conscious, and they think people are watching them, and they're not. Nobody's watching.
Putting
you.
more and more restrictions on them.
Yeah.
It's almost like, so.
We put ourselves in these little jails, right? Great advice for kids going into tryouts is like, nobody cares about you. Like in terms of like, people love you and care about you.
Yeah.
But remember, nobody cares about your mistake. Nobody cares about your shank. Nobody cares about whatever. They're too busy. The coach is too busy worried about how they look and if they look competent. The players are too worried about how they're looking and coming across. Sometimes that's why they dress the way they dress and all these extra little props to intimidate you or to maybe to cover up their own insecurities.
Yeah.
So nobody cares about your mess up.
The velour tracks.
Yeah, the velour track gold chain. Yeah, 4-pound gold chain. I don't know why my vertical's not high. No, but like, so nobody cares about your mistake, and it's a liberating feeling because everybody's worried about themselves.
Yeah.
So just get out there and play. Worry about yourself, but not in the wrong. Like they're worried about themselves in terms of image and props, right? And if you're out there just worried about the play and yourself, and who cares about it takes the pressure off of you because nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like, don't bother comparing yourself to them because they're too worried about themselves. And the best athletes are the ones that are just like going through. And sometimes you're sitting there watching these athletes who aren't thinking about you at all, and you're wondering how they're doing it. And it's literally because they're not having the thought you're having about wondering how they're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating thing to get out of your own head. And I always do tell people too, like one of my lines when I was counseling kids was like, not so much kids, but if I was working with adults who were asking me about life stuff, and I would just say, and even myself, I'm like, get over yourself. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what you're going through. Like if
Making
you think it's some public thing that people care about.
Life story, some huge thing.
You're just like, nobody cares, man. They'll care about you for like 3 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if you're up for murder.
And then they're back to caring about themselves. Yeah.
So it's like, they're back to caring about themselves. So. Maybe murder. I don't know. Maybe don't murder. Don't murder kids.
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah.
But
not during tryouts. Don't murder someone at the tryout.
With the ball.
Murder the ball. Yeah. What about you? What do you got next? We had.
Well. Yeah, I don't know. Just my parents didn't say much to me. They just like kind of like let me go to the tryout, go and play. Like obviously they took me to it because I expressed interest in the sport and I liked it. Mm-hmm. But then other than that, like they didn't really give me any major like pep talk or anything. Okay. I don't know if that's good or bad. Like I like what we're all saying here, but like how much of this can we deliver to like a 14-year-old without inundating them with information?
Yeah. And I think I would submit to you that it's a good thing your parents didn't give you the pep talk because then it becomes like, you confuse, like Hugh was talking about this on the show too. You might confuse the parents' love for you with your performance. Right. And it just will make it, I think a lot of parents fall into this trap today. They give their kids too much advice about something, and then they're inflating the significance of this thing their kid indirectly here.
Which is going to lead into
that. Self-consciousness, thinking more, worrying more. So I think parents, there's good advice there. Like parents, maybe you should diminish how much you're going on about the value here. Yes, talk about prep. Yes, encourage your kid to, if they want it, by the way, right?
Yeah.
If you're the one dragging them into the gym and you're the one insisting on healthy foods and insisting on all this, you're actually probably pushing your kid away from those tendencies later in life when they're in charge of their own life. Because by making it like work, you're actually making your kid not likely to do it. You know what I mean? The kids naturally pull back from what their parents are insisting on. So be careful that you're not the one insisting.
Well, when it comes to like healthy foods, I mean, it's pretty easy to make a healthy meal that like a kid's going to like.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying is like the parent that insists or goes on about it rather than does it.
Just does it.
Yeah. Like the household culture is just like, oh yeah, we're going to have healthy meals, or even if we eat out, we're going to pick.
Well, for sure. If you're eating like terrible all the time and then all of a sudden it's the night before tryouts and now you're like, oh, we have to have a good meal. Right. You've just now made it this thing bigger than it needs to be. Right. Yes. Whereas what's going on? Ideally, you're eating well the whole week through. Obviously, I know it can be difficult, but like,
as healthy as possible.
As healthy as possible. Like that's the best thing is, get them rested and like have a good meal.
But going back to the point, like your parents not lecturing you is probably why you had nice carefree tryouts when you were younger.
I think so, yeah.
Versus today we get parents like, okay, now.
I never felt the pressure of thinking of what my mom or dad thought of me succeeding or failing at these tryouts.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah, and in previous generations, like my parents, people my age,
like,
we were like barely dropped off, barely picked up, never saw us play, and it was wonderful. It was
ride your bike to try out, probably.
And so we had a generation of people that knew that they were doing the sport because they wanted to. Like everybody that played in my era, we all knew that we wanted to. Yeah. Versus today, where half the kids, you're looking out at the beach or you're looking out at the court and you're like, I don't know if that kid really wants it or the parent really. I mean, I know
that's weird.
The kid's not really in it for the right reason. The parent is pushing their own insecurities and past failures onto their kid and like, listen, I wasn't an athlete, so you're going to be one.
Yeah.
I see it the same in schools too, right? A lot of parents like, I wasn't good in school, so you have to be good in school.
Yep, same.
Pass their crap onto their kids. So that's an interesting thing for parents to keep in mind is how they talk about the events, how they talk about the tryouts matters to their kids. I had one I can say. I focus on the one thing you can in your power. This is a big one for me. I always go back to this one. So if you picture a gymnasium where there's like there could be hundreds of players trying out, in some it could be 20 or it could be 15 or whatever, but I always tell kids that in these settings, a lot of people, everybody is worried about not standing out for the wrong reason. So they're worried about failure, they're worried about mistakes, so they're very, what I call vanilla in their play, very safe, very a little bit boring. They're all concerned with messing up. So I always tell players going into tryouts, it doesn't matter the socks you're wearing. It doesn't matter the color shorts you're wearing, how you're dressed. Right. The one thing that will make you stand out in that gym is to be that player who's playing with no fear and playing extremely aggressively. I think that the right coaches will love that. And you will, like, again, just picture a sea of fitting in, a sea of fear of messing up, and then you see players that are like, wow, trying to crank it. Wow, trying to hammer it. Wow, chasing that ball down. Super aggressive, all within your control. Playing with no fear. It's almost like, everybody else is like a regular bird and you're like a peacock. Not in the show-off way, but in a just, wow, that kid gets noticed. So I think not enough kids understand that when they walk in a tryout, that mindset. It's hard to turn on, I think, but given the list so far, I think it'd be an easy thing to do if you had less perspective on every play, if you had no fear of mistakes.
I can see that tendency that you're talking about, the tendency to just fit in, especially serve and attacking. Like if you're given the green light and it's not like some type of continuation drill where you're just doing a controlled roll shot. If it's like you're open to swing, swing on the ball. Or like you're allowed to just serve and like, there's no like,
it's not a cooperative thing. You mean?
Yeah. It's not about like giving an easy serve over. It's just go for it. Then because the controlled aggression is absolutely going to make you stand out to the point of view of a good coach.
Yeah. Right. And even if it's uncontrolled aggression, like if you're smashing chairs, I mean, they will remember you.
Yeah, they definitely will remember you.
You're like punching kids in the face. They totally took the message wrong. But you will be remembered.
Honestly, that is a huge thing in volleyball. It's because it depends on the age group we're talking about, but that's one of the hardest things to get out of kids. I don't know if it's becoming more difficult nowadays, or if it's always been like that.
I think so.
To get the aggression out, right? Because volleyball is just about explosive movements. Like everything is. And then once you get older, then you can kind of predict the plays and stuff. But like,
no, but it's still, it's in a,
every time you do anything,
it's just a go get the ball kind of sport.
Yeah.
And nothing drives me nuts when I see like early days in a gym or new teams and the ball. And like you said before, like kids are self-conscious about how they look when they run or chase a ball, or they're a little timid because they're afraid to let loose in front of other kids.
The coach, it's up to the coach to create drills that are game-like. But if the players can have their energy output or their intent and drive game-like in the drills, then that's already making it easier for the coach, but you're making yourself stand out, because there's nothing worse than in a game situation when one of your teammates just gives up on a ball, doesn't even try. It's awful, and like everyone's gonna stare at them, and like they just went down a level in terms of like respect, or like they can't really rely on you now, right? So just start that tendency now.
And the irony is too, like the person who's most concerned of what other people think are the ones that will be the timid ones, who will therefore ruin their image in the eyes of other people, by that very it's interesting, right? Like, oh, you're worried about what people think about you. Well, you just did something that's going to make everybody think negatively about you anyway, so just ditch all of that.
This is why sport is a meritocracy. That's exactly it. Like I was going to use the wrong word, but like the people who don't belong there will eventually rule themselves out. Like, you know, it's the same in like, my dad's a pilot. It's the same in aviation. Like, assholes don't exist in aviation because
what?
Oh yeah,
sphincters. The medical terms.
Forgot. No swearing. They don't exist in aviation because they eventually get found out by co-pilots or other pilots, and they get pointed out. It's like, we can't have this person in the aviation industry
in charge of someone.
Except nowadays, like, aviation has seen some weird pilots since COVID happened. I can't say that either.
Well, no, you can.
Okay.
Well, because it forced a lot of pilots left or retired, and now there's a shortage. It's a reality. There's a shortage, and now people are getting hired that maybe not have been hired before because of the No, that's a real thing.
That is a real thing.
No, and I think sports. It's very important for people to understand that it's very, like I said, it's like a jail that people put themselves into, this like how I look in front of people. So if you can lose that, then you will go after the ball aggressively, chase down the ball, hit harder. Again, I just picture a whole gym full of athletes, and then pick who are you going to notice. So kids, if you're listening, or parents or coaches, you know, are you going to notice the kid that's just fitting in, or are you going to notice the kid that's going for it? It's just as basic as that, right?
Well, and what feels better than like going after the ball, 70% and getting a touch on it, or going after the ball, getting a touch, and then actually getting it up back into play? Like that noticeable huge difference. So it comes with its own built-in reward. Just don't be afraid to try it and see what that experience is like.
And that's why the expression like "get after it," you know, like just go for it. Like I think every parent listening can relate to this. They want their kid to lose their inhibitions and just go for it, right? And just, if you can, as a player, do that, you will stand out. And again, like I said, it might turn off the wrong coach, but even that's a win, because then you're like weeding out the weaker coaches who like are intimidated by that. But
you're right.
Being aggressive is good.
That is what those sayings are trying to describe, is what is on the other side of that door if you can go for it and open that door and
get after it and see. Lose the fear. Lose the inhibitions, you know. Well, you got one there?
Yeah, another one was, it's not like, this was kind of back in, again, my era when I was coming up, like, but just my effort even between my reps of the drill, like, so shagging a ball, I think it was good for me because it kept me moving, kept me warm. But like, you know, if I have to hit and then go shag my own hit, like I had a good pace jog to go and get the ball, right? And honestly, if you think about it, like I did that all throughout all my practices as a kid. It probably kept my cardio to a pretty good level if I'm always hustling to chase down a ball, get back in line. Because then, at least when I'm in line, I can be then watching my teammates get a rep, and then I might actually learn something, right? So that was something that my coaches instilled by being like, hey, like if you're going for a ball, like shagging a ball, like hustle. I don't want to see you walking, right? So, but I don't know if that's an old school traditional style thing, because I see it less now. I do it more so in my coaching. I try to keep that energy level up.
It's part of it. It's part of the vibe in the gym. Like when the coach is like that. In tryouts,
intensity.
In tryouts, they might not. I mean, a smart coach won't say it. In tryouts, and they want you to do it. Like that's funny that you had that as a point, because that was my body language and attitude. And what I mean by that is how you carry yourself and how you're hustling around the gym. Right. A little smile on your face, friendly to teammates who mess up, friendly to teammates who succeed, and chasing down balls. Right. Running when the coach says, let's bring the balls in, you're hustling in. It's such a huge, because like,
and it makes you get rid of that anxiety if you are
does.
feeling it.
Yes.
Like it helps you. You made that mistake. You go chase that ball. You're hustling. You're getting back. Like you don't have time to sit there and dwell on your.
That's it.
Right.
Yes, and it shows the coach that you're not dwelling either, right?
Yeah.
The player who overreacts to their error and then messes up the next stage of the drill, like, you know, the kid who shanks a ball and they don't go to target. Like, because that's a red flag for me. Like, as a coach, like if I see a player like shank a ball and like too worried about themselves versus the drill, right? There's either you can care about yourself here or you can care about the collective here.
I like this because this is an actual tangible thing that, like, because some of the other things we talked about are like
theoretical and
prep
mental.
before like your year, but I think this is something you can actually
so is hitting the ball aggressively and chasing the ball down, but this one's connected to it because it's sort of getting to the heart of why people don't do that stuff. I think they're too caught up on themselves, but yeah, I think that your attitude and hustle is something that coaches really like subconsciously. Again, the right coaches. Some coaches, you know, they have their buddies.
It just makes sense. Like if you are being aggressive, how are you not going to show some intensity on shagging a ball? Like it would be weird to like go hard on the court and then like walk. You know what I mean?
It feeds. It's like a cycle, right? Like even chasing the ball will lead to more aggressive play, I think. And and the better attitude.
Yes.
And I love what you said about shaking off. If this is your it could be a strategy, right?
Yeah.
Like shake off that error by hustling to the next stage, next step of the drill, getting the ball if that's what's required.
It does. I gotta actually make kids shag more balls in practices.
Well, this is why I'll be honest with you. One thing that's been driving me nuts as a past player. As a past player today, I see parents on the court shagging balls for kids. Oh, dude,
I know.
And it drives me nuts for so many reasons because it teaches the kids a little bit of entitlement. They don't need to work. Like I'll see kids in hitting lines and they just turn away from the hitting line because they know that the parents, whoever, might not even be their parents, are going to get the ball. And I'm like, it's so wrong. Like in terms of like the whole, you know, work ethic, shaking stuff off.
Man, and part of your beach warm up, like that is part of your warm up.
It's tiring, like getting the ball on the beach when it runs 4 courts over. Like the worst is when it comes near you and then you toss it to a kid and they don't even say thank you. Just like, what the hell is that?
That happens.
My kids, like, they thank everybody profusely when they get a ball back.
Yeah.
And I see these kids and I'm like, I'm not getting the next one. I'm not doing it for the thank you.
Yeah.
But the fact that the kid's so entitled and used to the parents chasing the ball down 3 courts, I'm like, my kids are like,
stand there and yell, hey, and you can't even hear what they're saying. They're just pointing your direction. You're like, what?
Or worse than that, they're just expecting someone to get it. They don't even chase it.
They don't.
Like it's like because they're so used to people doing stuff for them. I mean, that's
on the adults.
That's on the parents.
For allowing that to take place
and wanting to be their kids like lapdog. Like no way.
Yeah.
My kids like, hey, can you get the ball down? I'm like, nope. You get it. That's training, man.
Yeah.
And they will forget about the last play, by the way, because they'll be swearing under their breath about you.
Yeah.
I think that's the end of my list. Like I had prepare in advance, workout, sleep, food.
Yeah.
Arrive early and ready on my side. Perspective, don't overthink, and that's like a process to learn how to not overthink. I think it's connected with some of these things too. We're talking about hustle. Focus on the only thing you can in your power, which is yourself. Play with no fear and stand out. Body language and attitude. And then did you have stuff? What was yours? Summary? Do you have a summary of yours? Or did
sorry, you said it. Like the ones I think are really good is like the sleep, the diet, the be aggressive, you know, show the hustle, you know, chasing the ball down and getting back into the drill. Showing up, being kind, being early.
Yep.
You know, maybe engaging with another player to start warming up. I think that's amazing. Those are real things that you can do tomorrow, right? The other thing is like, this is just minor, like I don't even know if a coach would do this, but like the opportunity to demonstrate, but that's something.
Ask if the coach asks for a demo.
Asks for
that's cool. You know, that's good
because it shows positions or something.
That's actually an interesting little way to get noticed too. Yeah, like if you are the kid volunteering, you don't want to be like the pick me kid as they call them now, but that is kind of cool to like if the coach needs someone, like I need 4 players over here and you hustle over there.
Yes,
kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like in the same category as like going for the ball when you shag it and stuff,
yes,
right? Like
attitude.
You want to get these drills going, and then also by offering yourself up, you are then gonna force yourself to listen to what the coach says. Because I remember as a kid, like just being distracted, and I wouldn't listen to what they said, and then I would snap to and be like, "Oh, geez, what are we doing?" And then I'd go to the back of the line so I could watch other people do it, so I could figure out what's going on.
Yes.
So
that's a great point, actually. Like listening to instructions.
Yeah.
There's like the kid who's worried about how they look, or they're chatting with a friend, and then if you're in a drill and you're not doing it properly,
you don't know.
Looks really bad.
Pay
attention. Ask questions for clarification before. Not for the sake of asking questions, but legit. I have a question, kind of thing. That's huge. Yeah. Like because kids who aren't paying attention, because a lot of good coaches set up drills that are physical and mental by design.
Right.
And some parents and players look around because they don't get it, and they're like, "Man, that's so confusing." Or the players like, makes no sense. Well, the best coaches do that on purpose because they want to see who can be physical and handle the mental. Because volleyball, as you go, gets pretty confusing, right? A lot of stuff going on, a lot of things to watch, and 6 is indoor, and so they want to know which players have the mental and the physical.
Yeah.
So that's why I remember learning this as a young coach.
Is a big thing.
Well, as a young coach, they teach you, a good coach has taught me, make the drill a little complicated. Yeah. Because you want to sort out the kids, you know. So if you're on the ball, paying attention, not worried about how you look, because that's the other thing that impedes people's ability to listen, is they're so self-conscious that they're not even listening to instruction. Then they sort of weed themselves out, and then talk about not being able to be aggressive. Right, if you're unsure of the drill, then you're not going to be able to free your mind enough to go wail on it or chase it down. So that's a great one. Yeah,
I think, and those help break the kids out of that timidness. Mm-hmm. You know, if you just give them too much, give them something else to think about because they're trying to be in the drill and be focused or whatever. So it should break them out of it. Yeah, I like that.
All right, I think we're good. Are you good? So kids, so everybody listening, parents and coaches and players, good luck at tryouts. It's I know it depends on when you're listening to this, but at this time right now in July here in 2023, a lot of tryouts are happening around. And even if club tryouts are happening in a different area where you are, maybe you can go back and find this episode. I think there's some pretty solid points there. Parents, you have a lot to say in how your kids get ready for these things.
If you have questions, in the comments.
Yeah, feel free to comment here.
We'll do a follow-up or something.
Yeah, we could do a follow-up too, or if there's things that we missed and you feel that helped your child or helped you as a player or as a coach that helps players, feel free to comment. And as always, hit subscribe because that's how we...
Like the video does help.
That's how we feed our kids. I mean, my kids. That's how we feed my kids. All right, everybody, so have a great week and good luck at tryouts, and we will catch you next time on Volleyballology. Uncensored.
Ooh.
Even though we don't swear.
Definitely don't.
No.
What's the big idea?